Hey beauty lovers, it's Slay Productions. Today you're tuning into my virtual masterclass on how to achieve a natural glam. We'll be going over skincare, the importance of skin prep, and also makeup application. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in the video. So first off, I like to start out with cleansing the skin. I like to use micellar water or just like anything to cleanse the skin off with to get any like dirt or oils off the skin. So I'm gonna apply this on my cotton pad. You guys can get these cotton pads from Ulta, Sephora, and I'm just gonna coat that with a generous amount. I'm gonna wipe this across the skin, and this is just gonna get any unwanted items off of the surface of the face. It also has an exfoliating pad on the back, and it's gonna get anything off that we don't want under our makeup. After I get done cleansing the skin off, I like to go in with a nice hydrating moisturizer. No matter the skin type, if you have dry, oily, combination skin, you want to make sure you moisturize before applying any makeup to the face. This is key for getting a nice, seamless base. To moisturize the skin, I'm going to use my Clinique Moisture Surge. This is going to be good for all skin types. You can use this on dry, oily, or combination. My beautiful model today has combination skin. She tends to get oily in her T-zone area, so that's going to be on the nose and then underneath the eyes and more so on the cheek areas. She gets dry everywhere else, so I'm going to just apply an even layer of moisture. A lot of oily girls tend to make the mistake of not moisturizing the skin just because they have oily skin. And I'm an oily skin girl too, so I thought, okay, I don't need any moisturizer. I'm already oily enough. I don't need to add anything else to the face, but that is a myth, you guys. Please make sure you moisturize your skin, no matter the skin type, okay? Because it's just gonna make your face produce even more oils because it's dehydrated. It needs that moisture, so make sure you're adding that back into the skin before makeup application. This is the Peach and Lily Glass Skin Veil. This is going to hydrate her as well and give her a nice subtle glow. We want her to glow within, so this is just going to give her that illusion that she has that perfect glass skin. You want to rub that in with your fingers. Really take the time on skincare. Your makeup only looks as good as your skin does, so really make sure you're taking the time and making sure your model or your client has really nice, good skin prep before you start applying anything to the face. To start makeup, I want to go in with my Laura Mercier Loose Translucent Powder. I'm going to apply this across the brows on each side, and this is just going to mattify the brows to prep for our product that we're going to apply. So either a pomade or a pencil, either or works. And this is just going to help that pigment show up better and also have long-lasting brows throughout the day. You want to do this on both sides. If your client has more so dry skin, you want to be a little less generous with that powder, but don't be afraid to go in and really mattify those brows before application. Going in with my Morphe brow pencil, I'm using shade Chocolate Mousse. I'm going to use the spoolie side to just brush that powder through. And then I'm gonna start on the bottom of her brow, working my way outward towards the tail, and really just building up that pigmentation, moving my way towards the front. I'm gonna avoid the very front right now and just kind of concentrate towards that middle and end of that brow, making sure I fill in and also brushing that product through. Once we get towards the front of that brow, I'm going to elongate the bottom, and then I'm going to create some brow hair strokes in that very front of the brow. Her brows are not that full, so you want to create the illusion that she has a nice thick brow in the front by doing those brow hair strokes. With a client with a little more fuller brows, you can skip that step and just fill in the middle and the end. and then brush that product through like so. So I did the other eyebrow off camera. I'm going to go in with my NYX. This is going to be the glue that lays those brow hair down, just so her brow hairs are not wild. We want to lay those brow hairs down so we have a nice clean brow when we go in with that concealer to conceal her brows. If you guys don't have any of this NYX brow gel, you guys can go in with some eyelash glue. Yes, eyelash glue. That is going to be a trick that you use, and honestly you apply it the same way, but here's the trick. You get the duo lash glue in the green container, not the purple or the black. You want to do the green one. That's going to be the clear one. That's the one you need, you guys. So after we apply that brow gel, we're going to go in and use concealer to go ahead and carve out her brows. I'm using the Tarte concealer. This is the Shape Tape in shade Tan Deep Sand. I like to apply this on the back of my hand like so. And then I'll go in with like a concealer brush, a flat concealer brush, and carve out her brows. So I'm using another shade of concealer. This is also the Shape Tape concealer in shade Deep. I'm going to use both of those shades and kind of mix them. These are it on the back of my hand. I want to take a flat concealer brush just like so, and I'm going to carve out her brows right along her natural brow. And if you can't go in one straight line, just take it by steps. You just want to drag that concealer right underneath your brow. This concealer is supposed to be 1 to 2 shades lighter than your foundation. And we do this just because we want a nice highlighted brow for when we apply eyeshadow. I'm going to then drag that concealer down on the lid. And we do this just to prep for eyeshadow as well. I use concealer as an eyeshadow base, so you don't have to buy one. Turn this way for me. I'm gonna grab my Tan Deep Sand, which is a little lighter, and put it right up under that brow bone. Because I really want my eyeshadow to pop here once I apply it. And take your time on this part. I really feel like brows does frame the face, so you want to make sure it looks good. And we're going to drag that down. Doing the same thing to the other side, I'm going to drag this concealer down on her lid and make sure that they look the same. I'm going to take a small fluffy brush and I'm just going to blend this concealer that we placed underneath the brow out. You want to use tapping motions. You want to take your time because you don't want to mess up that brow that we just did. You want to make sure you blend that out and then blend that out on the nose as well. I like a nice defined brow, so I want to make sure we keep that line underneath. And then same thing for the other side. And then I like to do an upward motion as well, just to blend that out, diffuse that line in the middle of the nose. Next, to carve out the brows, I like to use a skin tone foundation on top of the brow. This is just going to help with it not being a halo brow. So we don't want our concealer on top of the brow. It's gonna make it look, it's just gonna make it look a little off. We wanna make sure that everything looks seamless. So we wanna use a flesh tone foundation shade. For foundation, I'm gonna use the NARS foundation. This is in shade Macao. This is one of my most popular used shades for my brown skin girls. I'm gonna take that foundation right along the top of our brow and carve that out. I'm just dragging it across the brow in little sections, just to make sure we don't mess up the work we just put in. You want to make sure you're following your client's natural brow shape. And getting it as close as possible to their brow hairs. You guys are definitely allowed to clean up. You don't have to have it down in one motion. I know sometimes I don't. So it's good to add and subtract and see where you need to add more product, and so you can have a good outcome. So I use tapping motions, going back in with that same little small brush that we used to blend out her concealer on her eyelid, and just doing the same thing on the top. Doing the same thing to the other side, I'm going to go ahead and carve out her brow. And I'm just again dragging that line across the top of her brow. And we're using a foundation shade. We're not using a concealer. If you guys do have a concealer that is more so closer to the client's skin tone, you're more than welcome to use that. I believe makeup has no rules, so whatever you have in your kit, use that at home. It's about the technique. I'm going to take a little bit of that concealer that we had previously, and I'm just going to go back underneath her eye. I'm sorry, underneath her brow, and give this brow more of an arch. Again, it's about adding and subtracting to get your preferred look. Next, I'm going to take a loose translucent powder on this fluffy setting brush from Real Techniques, and in the shade Translucent Honey. And this is from the Laura Mercier powder. And I'm just applying that right on the eyelid, just to set that concealer in place. And what that's going to do is going to create a nice seamless base for our eyeshadow. I also like to go over the front of the brow too, just to diffuse any kind of harsh lines or any kind of harshness that we created when carving out that brow. And don't be afraid to go in with that powder. Set those lids. These are the two eyeshadow palettes we're going to use today. This is the Coffee Shop palette by Juvia's Place, and then we also have another Zulu palette by Juvia's Place as well. So right now, this is my most used palette. As you guys can see, I'm out of my preferred shade right here. So that's why I'm going to dip into that Zulu palette and kind of get the same tone. It's like a light brown shade. We're going to use that first as our transition shade, and then we're also going to go into our deeper brown right here as our deepest shade. So we're going to create like a transition. We're going to have a light brown and a dark brown, and this is how I create my preferred natural glam. You guys see this palette as well. This is a Zulu palette, and this is that light brown shade I was talking to you guys about. So I'm just taking a fluffy eyeshadow brush, and I'm going to dip into that light brown shade right here. And I'm going to concentrate that right on the outside, and then diffusing my way towards her nose. And we're just building that shade. I'm just using back and forth motions, swiping motions if you will. I'm not using tapping motions. I'm just swiping that product on the eyelid. And again, this is going to be our transition shade. I also like to slightly raise the brow just a little bit so I can really get in there. Using circular motions, I'm just going to diffuse that out into the nose. And this just kind of creates that underlying contour that we're going to do later on. Doing the same to the other side. Starting on the outer corner, diffusing that out, working our way back into the inside. You want to get you a nice brown shade that's really pigmented. The Juvia's Place collection is really pigmented. Morphe is also a really good collection for eyeshadows because they really do show up on pigmented skin. Next, I'm going to dip in with this darker brown shade from the Coffee Shop palette by Juvia's Place. And I'm just going to concentrate that right on the lid. This, I am using tapping motions for this part. And I'm also using a little bit of circular motions just to blend that out. But I want that color to be concentrated right on the lid. And then later you will see me dip back into that lighter brown shade just to get that gradient that we want. You want to make sure you stay in place. Staying in place is very important when it comes to eyeshadow, or your eyeshadow can look very muddy. Doing the same to the other side. Just using those tapping motions. Really getting in there, applying that product on. Do not be afraid to get that product on that lid. So I'm going back in with that first light brown shade that we used on a smaller fluffy brush. And this is just to concentrate where I want that light brown shade. Just so I know it's going to stay in place. And I'm going to do that on both sides. Just making sure we have like a seamless gradient. Now that the eyeshadow is done, we're going to go with our Hydro Grip Primer from Milk Makeup. I'm going to apply this on the same brush I used my moisturizer. And I'm just going to apply that on the skin. Primer is going to be that layer between skincare and makeup, and it's just going to help everything adhere to the base a little bit better. I know I used to think that primer was the same thing as moisturizer, but honestly guys, it's different. They made it for a reason, you guys, so I mean, it really is a big deal. It's going to be a little tacky. Moisturizer isn't too much tacky, and I really like to just press that into the skin. And this is also going to help with that longevity of your makeup application. I like these pressing motions and swiping motions. This is the only time you guys get to swipe anything on the face. But I like to be generous with this part just because I want to make sure that everything on the skin will be flawless. After primer is applied, I like to go in with my foundation. This is the NARS foundation, the Longwear foundation in shade New Caledonia. I decided to go a little darker with the foundation, just because I noticed that it did need to be a little darker. I'm just gonna apply this in swatches all over the face, and then I'm gonna blend that foundation out. This just kind of helps me control how much product I'm putting on the face, opposed to using a foundation brush and going straight in. So now that those swatches are on the face, I like to take a foundation brush. You guys can take any kind of like dense brush, and you want to just press that foundation into the skin. And again, I'm using tapping motions. We're not swiping this around the face. If you swipe your makeup across the face, it's going to create streaks and you won't get a nice seamless blend. So I decided to take a little bit of that Macao shade in that foundation, and I'm just going to add that around the perimeters of her face. You don't want to be afraid to add and subtract where you need to. I did notice that when I wanted it to be a little bit lighter, just to match her a little bit better. So that's what we're going to do, just so we can get her perfect foundation match. Don't forget that nose too. You want to leave underneath the eye bare, because this is where we're going to put concealer. So the next step is going to be concealer. You want to use 2 shades of concealer, one that's 1 shade lighter and one that's 2 shades lighter. I personally like a bright under eye, and I like my girls to have bright under eyes. So I'm going to concentrate my light concealer in the inner corners of her eye, and then focus that other concealer that's a little shade darker on the outer corners of her eye. It's going to give her a nice ombre effect to give her a nice seamless look without being too bright. The first shade of concealer is going to be the lighter shade here, and then we have our darker shade here. That one is Tan Sand, and then our darker one is going to be Deep. This is in the Shape Tape Concealer. I'm going to take my lightest concealer shade, and I'm going to place that right in the inner corner. Now I know this can look a little crazy to girls that are more natural, but I really do like that pop that it does give. Again, placing that on the other side. And we're going to do the same thing to the nose, chin, and forehead. And I like to carve out the front of the brows with this step as well. With that concealer. And we just want to take that up into the middle of the forehead. We put concealer in these areas because this is where the light naturally hits your client's face. And I'm going to take that darker shade and then focus that on the outer corners of the face. Just kind of dragging that out. Same thing for the other side. Same thing for our nose and forehead. Just kind of gotta mix those shades so it's not too bright. I'm gonna bring that down. And then up and out, just like so. So before we blend that concealer out, I'm going to go in with my Morphe Continuous Prep and Set Mist. This is just going to help everything seamlessly blend together a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and spray that on her face. I'm going to protect her eyeshadow. And now we have a nice hydrated base again, just to blend that concealer out. I'm going to start on the edges of the concealer and then work my way inward. And this is just going to help everything blend together nice and easily. I I like using a brush for this step. I like a really full coverage kind of look. And I feel like brushes really do help achieve that look a little bit better than sponges. Sponges tend to soak up a lot of product. So that's why I like going to brushes. They're gonna keep that product right where you put it, without taking away everything and all the work that you just did. I'm gonna switch to a more angled brush, just to get right up under her eye. Just so I can get a little closer. You always want to tell your client to look up. This is how you're going to get as close as possible to their eye. Same thing for the other side. And then you want to tap that product away on the forehead and nose. Switching back into my other brush, I'm just going to get in that inner corner, close to her nose. Blending that out. Just making sure everything is nice and seamless. Again, we're using tapping motions. We're not swiping any kind of product anywhere. Alright, now that our concealer is nicely blended out, we're going to go in with cream contour. I like to use the Black Opal contour stick. This is in shade this is in shade Ebony Brown. I like to use this, and then I like to go back in with my foundation brush as well. And this just helps everything cohesively blend together without using too many brushes. So I like to concentrate that just right under the cheekbone. Right up under that cheekbone. On both sides. Slightly turn for me. Yep. And I also apply this in tapping motions. You want that contour to be one to two shades darker than your foundation, just so you can have that dimension. I also like to put it on the forehead as well, and this is just going to help shrink everything and give the illusion of a nice snatched face. Again, we're just pressing that product into the skin for a nice seamless look. So now that we put contour on the sides of her face, we're gonna go ahead and contour her nose. I'm taking that same contour shade on a nice flat brush and going down the sides of her nose with that shade, bringing it up towards the brows, the start of the brows, and this is just gonna give us the illusion that she has a nice snatched nose. Now her nose is already perfect. Her nose is already looks pretty great, right? But we want to make her snatched as possible. And I just drag this down to the point of the nose. And then we're going to blend that out with a nice fluffy brush. I'm just going to take that Real Techniques fluffy brush that we had again and just tap that product into place. And this is just going to help us blend out and diffuse that contour that we put on her nose, but also keeping it in place as well, because we don't want to lose that. We want to see everything. Just blend it out. We don't want to see where it starts and where it stops. I'm just going to take a nice fluffy brush, something a little bit smaller, and really get in there and press everything into each other. We just want to marry everything to each other. We want everything to be seamlessly blend. I like to use two blushes. I like to do like a nice ombre effect. I have a nice pinky tone right here, And then we have like a nice deep berry kind of color. This is from the e.l.f. cosmetic brand, and this is our Juvia's Place. Both of these are pretty good cream blushes. You can't go wrong with either or. I like to apply that to the back of my hand like so, because these blushes are pretty pigmented, as you guys can see. We don't want all these colors on her face because they're going to be too harsh. We want to make sure everything is blended out nicely and seamlessly. I like to take that foundation brush that we had. I use this foundation brush for everything. You're going to see me use it for the foundation, the bronzer, the blush, everything. And this just helps everything kind of marry each other together. I'm going to go in with that nice pinky tone on the apples of her cheeks. Like so. And as you can see, it's nice and diffused. It's not too harsh. And that's exactly what we want. We want a nice diffused out pigment. Going in with that berry shade, I'm going to concentrate that kind of on the back side of her face right here, on the higher points of her face. Just kind of like meshing those two together. And this just kind of creates a dimension. Seeing different hues and different shades come together instead of just using one shade. I'm going to go back in with this fluffy brush and just blend everything together. This is going to be the last step that we do before we start setting everything into place. So next it's time to set the face. We're going to go in with the loose translucent powder in shade Translucent Honey from the Laura Mercier. You're going to have your client look up, and we're just going to pack that product on and tap that product until you cannot see it anymore. This is called setting. So a lot of people get confused with setting and baking. The key difference here is setting, you want to press the product in until it's nice and seamless and it's gone, while baking, it sits on top of the skin, right? So we want to set, and this is just making sure that all of our creams are nice and set into place and it's not moving anywhere. We want to make sure everything is in its place and nice and seamless and ready for powder contour. Now for this step, you can use a brush or you can use a powder puff. Today we're using a brush, and I'm just going to put that on her chin and forehead and nose. And this is just everywhere that we put that liquid concealer. And then anything else that's on the brush, you can just kind of take that over that contour and that blush, just so they're not wet on the face. Just want to take the excess. You don't want to change the tone of that color, just so the whole face can be mattified. After this step, you want to go in with powder contour and powder bronzer. I'm using the Morphe 8D palette. Guys, I love this palette so much. You guys can get it on Ulta or Morphe.com. They don't sell it in stores anymore, unfortunately. But I'm going to take these three shades and just kind of play with them a little bit. I'm going to dip into each one of them, kind of just getting a little bit of everything and then applying that to the face as well. So I'm going to dip into all of these shades. Tap that excess off. You don't want too much product on the brush, and I'm just going to use tapping and a little bit of swiping motions, but more so tapping right on top of that cream bronzer that we just did. And this is just going to build up pigmentation on the face just to give her that dimension that we want. Doing the same thing to the other side, making sure that we stay in place. And then also we cannot forget the forehead as well. Just setting everywhere that we put that contour, that cream contour. Next I'm going to go in with powder blush. I'm going to use these two shades. I'm going to go into my berry shade first. And this blush is very pigmented, so a little bit goes a long way. Concentrating that on the apples of her cheeks. Taking that up a little bit for a more lifted look. And then I'm also going to go into that lighter shade too. This is very pigmented, it only takes a little bit. And it really does make a difference. For extra razzle dazzle, I like to go on with the Fenty Beauty. This is going to be Mocha Mommy. And this is a bronzing shade. It's just going to give her a little bit more pigmented when it comes to our contours and bronzers. I like to use both. I like to use contours and bronzers at the same time. I like the look of it. It does look really nice on the skin, especially when you blend them correctly. So it's really important to really make sure you're blending everything and tapping everything into place so you get a nice seamless look. Now it is time to bake. I'm going to take that same powder that we used to set and go right up under the eye and bake. As you can see, I'm not tapping it away 100%. I'm leaving a little bit on the face, and this is just going to help for longevity throughout the night as you wet your makeup. I'm going to put this everywhere that I use concealer. So again, under the eyes, chin, nose, and forehead. So my model here, she has combo skin, so I can get away with putting, you know, a good generous amount of powder on her face without it caking up. If your client has really, really dry skin, then I do advise controlling how much powder you do put on the face, just so it doesn't cake up. Right now, I'm going to structure out her cheekbones, and I'm just using this with a brush. You can also use a powder puff for this step as well, and I'm using that same powder that we just used to bake her. This is just going to give structure to the face. So I applied black eyeliner in her waterline, and then I also popped on some lashes off camera. I'm going to go back into my contour palette. I'm just going to reinforce this cream contour that we have going on here, just with some powder contour. I'm using those same shades that we did before. I'm just applying this in circular motions and also a little bit of swiping motions. Just bringing that up into that brow to the tip of the nose. I'm going to take my fluffy setting brush that we've been using, just kind of pat that into place, just so nothing's too harsh. And I'm also going to carve out that nose. So normally I would use a powder puff, but I don't have a powder puff at the moment, so I'm going to use my setting brush, but I'm going to pinch this brush. I'm going to have my client look up for me, and I'm just going to carve out the sides of her nose just like this. And this is just another trick. If you don't have a powder puff, you can always use a brush, and it will work the same way. And this just gives structure to the nose. So now that her nose is baking, I'm just gonna apply some lip balm to the lips to prep for our lip combo. Have her rub that in. And then I'm gonna go in with my MAC lip pencil. This is in shade Chestnut. And this is one of the darkest shades, if not the darkest. And I'm just gonna outline her lips. Just like so. And then we wanna bring that in just so there's not like a harsh line all the way around her lips. I like to overline just a tad bit, only at the pout right here. Even though she has nice full lips, I still like to overline. And then bring the sides in as well. And make sure everything is even on both sides. Okay. Now that our lip liner is done, I'm going to go in with my liquid lipstick. This is in shade Quick Crush. This is the Morphe liquid lipstick. I'm going to apply that straight in the middle and then on the top as well. This is like the perfect nude shade. This formula is a little velvety, so I like to let it dry down a little bit before I blend it out and before I have her tap her lips together. I'm gonna leave that there. I'm gonna leave that there to set. I'm gonna build up on a little bit of pigmentation. You guys can use a brush, lip applicator. Right now I'm using just a Q-tip. They all work the same. Okay, so I'm gonna leave that there. And now that she's done baking, I'm gonna get just a fluffy brush. I'm gonna take her foundation shade in a powder. I like to use the MAC Studio Fix powder. This is going to be in shade NC50. And then I also like to take a different powder. This is also going to be in the MAC Studio Fix powder. This is in shade NW45, and it's going to be this top shade right here. This shade I'm going to apply all over the face, while this shade I'm going to keep underneath the eyes, nose, chin, and forehead where we had our concealer. This is going to be lighter, and this is going to be her foundation shade. Now I'm just gonna tap that product with the brush, get a good amount, tap that excess off, and really just swipe that powder away while also pressing it into her skin. And this is what gets you that nice filtered look. You can't miss this step. Doing that on the other side. Gonna turn this way. Tapping and swiping that product away. Just like so. So that is gone. Okay. I'm going to go in with that lighter shade that you guys saw before. Taking my Real Techniques setting brush, the fluffy setting brush, going underneath the eye, and now I'm just going to press and swipe that baking that we had going on underneath the eye away. But we're also keeping this bright. Nose, forehead, just kind of staying in place. And then we're going to swipe away that nose contour that we had going on. Look up for me. I'm also going to go back in with that darker foundation shade that we had and use that to kind of just blend a little bit better around that nose contour. Gonna grab a smaller brush Just really get in there. Okay, so now I'm gonna have her blend out her lip combo. So pat twice for me. I'm gonna have her keep patting until that is diffused away. So go ahead and keep patting for me. And you guys can see how this is just kind of like diffusing away, and it's creating an ombre effect. So now that she's created that ombre effect, you see how that's nice and seamlessly blended out. Nothing's all over the place. It's not smudgy. Everything is where we want it to be, which is pretty nice, and that's exactly what we want. I'm just gonna take a Q-tip and just tap around the edges just to get anything that we didn't blend out. And you guys can leave it matte just like this, or you could top it with some gloss. It's really whatever you prefer. Okay, so after we got our lip combo on, we're gonna leave the lip matte. I'm gonna go ahead and spray her with my Morphe setting spray. This is just gonna be a melting powder spray, so it's gonna melt everything together. It's not necessarily for longevity, but we're gonna layer. We're gonna use this one, our Charlotte Tilbury, and also use a One Size Beauty setting spray, and that's what's gonna make that that's what's gonna have that longevity for her makeup. So we're gonna go ahead and use this. I'm gonna protect her eyes with that eyeshadow. Spray her down and melt all those products together so everything meshes well. I'm gonna go ahead and get my fan and just make sure that dries down nicely. You can use that spray if you're kind of scared and you put too much powder. Just know that that Morphe setting spray will make all that go away. Okay, so our next spray that we're going to use is our Charlotte Tilbury setting spray. This is the airbrush setting spray. This is going to be also a fixing spray, so it does have this thing called polymers in it. It's going to help with the longevity of makeup. So it's going to also melt that powder, like I said, make everything mesh together, and then help with longevity too. We're going to spray that across the face, just like we did that Morphe. At least like 6 to 8 inches away from the face. Again, going back in with our fan, letting everything mesh together. And then our last setting spray is going to be the One Size Beauty setting spray. This is a staple in my kit. I have to have this. This is what makes the makeup stay on. This is what gets the girls right when they go out to prom, they go on date night, they go out with their friends. This is what you need. This is going to be a little bit stronger. This is going to be a fixing spray, so it's going to be an aerosol spray. It's not meant to melt powders. It's meant for longevity. I'm going to spray this across the face, a little bit strong. And for this, I don't want to avoid the I don't want to cover up the eyeshadow. I want everything to get sprayed with this setting spray. We're going to go in one more time. Give it a good shake. Just like that. Okay, so one of our final steps is going to be highlighter. I like to use the Fenty Beauty Diamond Veil, and then I like to also top with the ColourPop highlighter. These are going to be really nice and really just bring like those highlighted areas to the face where the light naturally hits the model in the face. Again, those are going to be placed on the nose, chin, forehead, and on the cheekbones. I like to concentrate it really just on the nose and on the cheekbones. I tend to avoid the forehead and the chin sometimes, just because sometimes like depending on the client, it could look a little oily, or if the client has acne scars or like bumps, we don't want to put highlighter on those bumps because we don't want to accentuate that. But I do find it really flattering when I do put it on the nose and on the cheekbones. So we're going to do that really quick, and then we're going to put some mascara on her bottom lashes, and this makeup look will be complete. Alright, so I'm going to go in with the Fenty Beauty Diamond Veil first on a nice fluffy brush, getting a good amount of product. I'm going to dust the excess off and then concentrate that on her cheekbone. Same thing for the other side. And then I'm going to take a smaller brush and I'm going to do the same thing but just for her nose. The reason we're not going to take a huge brush is because we don't want that highlighter to get everywhere and mess up our nose contour. So I'm gonna put that on the bridge of her nose right here, and then on the tip of the nose. Next, I'll go in with that ColourPop. Same ordeal. Topping it like that. And then I'll go back in with that fluffy brush. Topping that ColourPop on the high points of the cheek. And then for some extra razzle dazzle, I like to go in the inner corners of the eye. Close your eyes for me. And concentrate that right there. It really does make a difference in the final makeup look. Really does make everything pop. So I applied some mascara on her bottom lashes, and this is the finished look, you guys. She is subtle, soft, she is eating the girls up. This is my final look for my natural glam. I hope you guys took away something from this video, that you learned something. Try this at home. Definitely let me know if you guys have any questions or concerns, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.